Welcome back, everybody, to our study of the Way of the Bodhisattva. We're going to wrap up chapter 1. And just to review what we've been doing, we've been talking about why bodhicitta is so essential, why it's the very heart of the Buddha Dharma. And I hope that you understand that it's so simple in some ways, but it's so powerful. It has no limits, and it is the backbone of every other Dharma practice. And I know for myself, as I've explained already, that it's very easy to turn the Dharma into a self-serving mechanism. We all have the positive intention to eliminate our negative emotions and feel better and get happier. And then we probably get the idea that spiritual accomplishment is something like this amazing thing. And there can be this turn of mind, this egocentric turn of mind in which we become a spiritual practitioner, and spiritual practitioner becomes the new identity. Right? And that slips in without you noticing. And then we say the bodhicitta verses every day, and we think we're practicing for other sentient beings, but are we really? And so I hope you'll just look carefully at your own practice and your own activities in your own daily life and think about how often this motivation to benefit sentient beings is in your mind. It's literally a thought, right? We have to train in the thought. We have to put the thought, I am doing this to help all beings, into our mind. And below it is an energy, right? It's a shift in how we feel towards what we're doing, because normally we're thinking, I want to feel happier, I want to feel pleasure, I don't want to feel pain. It's I. And what we're trying to do is train our mind to turn towards not just this I, but the we, right? And then behind that is the highest level, the wisdom level, is just pure openness. And this not nothingness, the openness in which all interdependence occurs, right? The openness in which everything you do affects everyone else and everyone else affects everything in you, right? So that is what we're working with. And that's the truth of reality, not something you're overlaying on top of it. We're recognizing that it's an open situation. And in this open situation, it is ridiculous to fight against something that's apparently outside because it only harms you, right? We are interdependent. So first, the anger harms you. Shantideva will talk about this later in the chapter on patience, but it's worth bringing up now that when we feel anger, first we feel like crap. And then we project that crap onto others, and they may or may not receive it, but we definitely feel like crap when we're angry, right? So these mechanisms by which we have built the armor around ourselves are causing us suffering. And so this is all about moving the armor off of us and being the tender openness that we really are. But it comes at a price. It comes at a price, especially as we train in it. But it's not as hard as samsara. It's better, right? Samsara is the orientation of egocentric and emotional reactivity, right? That is what samsara is. Samsara is not a place. Samsara has a vision based on your emotional reactivities, but it's ultimately about the orientation of your karma. But when we practice bodhicitta, we are practicing seeing through the karmic vision, through and behind, into this interdependent world that we actually exist in which cause and effect become stronger, more clear, and we become more careful. But also we become more happy because it's true, because it's open, because it's not restricted. There's more fresh air. There's more, there's nothing to lose, right? Because what we are so afraid of, this is death, and death is annihilation, right? We're afraid of being destroyed, but the only thing that can be destroyed is this feeling of separateness. So if we let go of the feeling of separateness first, then we don't die when we die. Right? Because what dies is just that contraction. And the contraction, we can enjoy the beautiful story of our life as a beautiful story, but without attachment, right? Because the attachment is silly. It's based on a fiction. It's a dream. So enjoy the dream and let it pass. If you are able to enjoy the dream, then you're able to allow for the other beings and everybody else's happiness, and you're allowed to able to tolerate the difficulties in your life. Because you just go, oh, it's just a dream. Right? It pacifies on both sides. If we love it too much, it softens that loving it too much. And if we hate it too much, it softens that hating it too much into a situation in which things are open and not so serious, and in which we might be of help to others and actual happiness can be found, right? Because what is a Buddha other than somebody who is completely identified with this openness And it benefits others continuously because of that, because it knows that it's interdependent and connected to everything else. So we're on verse 33. What need is there to speak of those who long bestow on countless multitudes the peerless joy of blissful Buddhahood, the ultimate fulfillment of their hopes? So we talked about last time that, even a villain, when they throw you some food, we think, oh, how lovely of them for throwing some food to the poor people. But this bodhisattva who gives unceasingly without any expectation of return on boundless multitudes, that is the greatest of the great. And see, we need to develop a hunger for bodhicitta. That's what this first chapter is about, right? We have to be desperate for it. We have to want it really bad, because the rest of this text is not an easy path. It takes some work. It's a hero's journey without a doubt. So as we get prepared for this journey, you need to be convinced it's a journey worth taking. And I hope we're doing that. I hope we're selling you on the power of this thing. It's the most amazing thing. And it really is sometimes the hardest to understand. As somebody I've said who's received the highest teachings and went through it for a long time, I only am now really understanding the importance of this. And in so many other ways, you can take those highest level teachings and go, okay, now I have some connection to my true nature, and I'm calm and relaxed about it. And there's this now what? This is the now what. You need to develop the rupakaya, right? We don't just extinguish our suffering, because that's just step one. Like, you'll find that if you practice shamatha vipassana and the four immeasurables, your suffering will calm down. But then once your suffering has calmed down, we got to take it to the next level. And the next level is to develop the rupakaya for the benefit of beings. We need to establish all the qualities in us. The qualities now matter more than our own reduction of suffering. And so that's the flip I'm trying to help all of us, and myself especially, to make. 34. All those who harbor evil in their minds against such lords of generosity, the Buddha's heirs, will stay in hell. The mighty sage has said, for ages equal to the moments of their malice. So because a bodhisattva is a benefactor for all sentient beings, to harm them is to harm all sentient beings. You see where this is going? Right? So the karma associated with a relationship to a bodhisattva is heavy. This is why we have to be so careful, because just like in the Odyssey, you never know who might be a god, and so you better welcome them into your home and treat them with hospitality. In the same way, you never know who a bodhisattva is. We can't know, right? The bodhisattvas appear as everything: bridges, glasses of water, medicine, the beggars, so many things, prostitutes. You can imagine there's no way to know who's a bodhisattva. So this is helping you with your pure vision, right? You have to be careful about how you relate to everyone, even those who cause a lot of trouble. We should see everyone as a bodhisattva, right? This is helpful for our pure vision, and it is helpful because we need to be careful with our karma. And if there's a being who is benefiting all sentient beings through their motivation, then by doing anything to them, we multiply our karma, positive or negative. So verse 35 shows you the other side. But joyous and devoted thoughts will yield abundant fruits and greater strength than the negative thoughts, right? So even in great trouble, bodhisattvas never bring forth wrong. Their virtues naturally increase. So to praise the bodhisattvas, to make offerings to the bodhisattvas, now you know why it's so powerful. A being who is benefiting all sentient beings, when you make an offering to them, you're making an offering to all sentient beings. Do you see how this works? This is the karma that we're working with. And so this also should give you some insight, if you're practicing the Vajrayana, into what we're doing. We're working with this multiplied infinite karma and merit. This is why it's dangerous, right? Because if it's misunderstood, if you visualize yourself as a deity, but you don't have bodhicitta, you have just reinforced your ego clinging. You have just become an egomaniac. You are practicing sociopathy. I'm sure you've met people who've gotten really good at insight, and so they cut down every thought about karmic consequence and turn themselves into a complete sociopath. It happens all the time. And so this is the danger of Vajrayana, because the tools are so powerful, but if you're not trained to use them, if you don't have bodhicitta, then they become weapons of destruction, right? So this is the reason for the secrecy around the Vajrayana, right? Those weapons, those tools, they can be used for benefit or harm, depending. And if you don't have bodhicitta, they will cause harm. So this is why this is so important. And once you understand this, then you'll really understand what we're doing in all of the imaginative exercises of the Vajrayana. Because Shantideva, right, he was a monk with a very simple life and no means to make great vast offerings. He wasn't a king, right? He had no possessions. So all of the practice you come into, like in the next couple chapters where he talks about how to do some of this, it's all through visualization. And so even that is like, even though this is a Mahayana text, that's slightly Vajrayana practice, right? Because he's using the imagination to power this. And it's even more potent in some ways because when we use physical things, we tend to have kind of feelings of, I don't really want to give you this. And that poisons it all, right? But when we use it mentally, we can just flash and we can offer infinite offerings, and we can make the offerings to all sentient beings, which is an infinite source, or to a Buddha, which is also all sentient beings, as I explained, because they're benefiting all sentient beings. So making an offering to them is making an offering to all sentient beings. That's why this has more potency than the approaches of the lower yanas. So verse 36, the last one, to them in whom this precious jewel of mind is born, to them I bow. He's bowing to you if you take on this vow, right? We should and could and can bow to everyone who has bodhicitta in their heart. It is so amazing. You have now become the servant to all. You have now become somebody whose orientation in life from now on is just bringing benefit to all beings. That's incredible. And everyone who has that, I bow to you. And we can look at the great masters like the Dalai Lama and Garchen Rinpoche, these absolute pinnacles of existence, right? Who have mastered this, who have become this. And think about how much benefit they bring just by seeing them, hearing their voice. Beings are instantly benefited. I know you know it. Like if I even like listen to Garchen Rinpoche for a minute, I instantly feel happier. That's because he's done this, because he is bodhicitta. He said it himself, the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva, which is really like a condensed version of this text, he said is inseparable from me. You should think of that text as me. And I think that's really true and so incredible. So I go for refuge to those springs of happiness who bring their very enemies to perfect bliss. Isn't that a beautiful way to end the chapter? So we go for refuge. Remember what that means. That means we're not taking refuge in our normal things that all fail us, right? Longevity will fail us. Relationships will fail us. Pleasure will fail us. Education will fail us. There's no refuge apart from this that is reliable. And this refuge is the ultimate refuge at the highest level of wisdom mixed with skillful means of benefit, right? These two together, the two wings of bodhicitta, we can take refuge in that, and it will never fail us. And it will be with us at our moment of death, and it'll be with us in the bardo, and it'll be with us in our next life if we practice this well. So that's how seriously we should take this. And we go to refuge to those springs of happiness, right? They flow unceasingly with happiness for all beings who bring their very enemies to perfect bliss. And what is an enemy? Somebody who wishes you harm, right? Because a bodhisattva has no enemies in the sense no one they want to harm, but enemies are somebody who wants to harm them. And they actually benefit those beings, right? Just even the harm caused to them brings benefit to the enemies. That's how incredible they are. So I hope you will aspire to become a bodhisattva and make that vow. Do it right now, and then do it again in front of a master, a teacher, go to a ceremony, do one online. Find a way to make this the essence of who you are. It will change everything about you and your life, I promise. And it will bring manifold benefits, and everything else in the path will work so much more quickly and so much more easily. So I hope you're enjoying this, and I hope it benefits all sentient beings, and we'll see you next time.